Hey Homesteaders, welcome to another Sunday session of the Australian Homesteaders podcast, where we have conversations about traditional skills, self-sufficiency and the experience of homesteading in Australia. We stream these live into the Australian Homesteaders community Facebook most Sundays, so you can get an exclusive early access to the full discussion and the opportunity to ask questions. Then the following Friday is uploaded as a video podcast to YouTube. I'm your host, Amanda from Rockpile Off-Grid Homestead, and today's chat is about turning your homestead milk cow dream into a reality, the Essential Starter Guide, with Mel from Honey Bee Farmstead. So Mel, husband Alex, and 4 of their kids who are still at home are living on a 120-acre property in the wheat belt of WA. Mel's Jersey cow obsession has led her to creating a breeding program, bringing back old school Jersey genetics to breed homestead-ready milk cows for other homesteaders. And while this chat is about milk cows, Honey Bee Farmstead have lots of different animals on their farm: milk cows, beef cattle, goats, sheep, alpacas, pigs, turkeys, geese, ducks, chickens, bees, plus a Marima livestock guardian to help keep them all safe. Using their experience and knowledge from growing up on farms, Mel, Alex and family are applying permaculture and other regeneration principles to best steward their land and their animals while working towards self-sufficiency by growing their own food, raising and processing their own meat, and looking to take their farm off-grid. Welcome, Mel.
Thank you. What an amazing introduction. You're quite the writer.
Did I get all the animals in? Tell me, did I cover everything?
I'm pretty sure you did, actually. Yeah, definitely.
That's awesome, because I was sitting there going, okay, I've got this. Oh, wait, I almost forgot the turkey. Hey?
Did you say alpaca?
Yes, I did say alpaca. I almost forgot the case. No, I've got everything. Awesome. There's someone in the comments saying, I dream of owning that many animals.
I always did too. Don't worry, you can have it. You will have it.
Yeah, this was a dream for all of us at one time, and a lot of us have made it there, and you will too. Oh, wow. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah.
I want to say that this page is going off and I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. And I'm so glad that we had that discussion in my chook pen all that time ago, and it's come to fruition. And I'm just so blessed to have all of you guys in my life. And I really do cherish every one of you and all your amazing comments. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's an amazing place. I love having I couldn't believe the response to the need for community. You originally you inspired this by how you reached out and started building a community locally, and me being a little introvert person went, well, I'll build one kind of online, and it's just so complimentary and I love seeing it, and I love all you guys. All right, so Love Fest done. Let's get into our chat, because this is much anticipated. People have been asking me to get you to talk about this for ages. So I would like to maybe establish a foundation for our conversation, because some people might not know that there can actually be significant differences between, say, homestead ready milk cow and a dairy farm milk cow. What are some of the main areas on how they differ? Let's start there.
Okay. Generally speaking, there are 2 types or breeds of cow that we really have in Australia that make up the dairy industry's cows, right? So we have the Holstein or Friesian, as they're known, and we have the Jersey. So most dairies will have Jerseys on it because they get paid on their milk fat content, whereas like the Friesians or Holsteins produce a ton of milk but not a lot of milk fats, right? There are a couple of other differences, like size, for example, and temperament or personality types. So bearing in mind that they are animals and they all have their own personalities, generally they are fairly true to type, right? So I've found most Jerseys to be very placid in nature. quite amenable, will happily do things with you and come along and more sort of curious about you. But on a whole, like Frisians, for example, Alex grew up in a dairy, and he used to say, don't ever get a Frisian, they're feral. They trash fences, they just walk over everything. They know their routine, of course, but they're not overly personable. So like kind of the difference between a dog and a cat. However, I have found that it's probably just the environment they're kept in. So as you guys may know, I recently got a Jersey cow from a dairy. It was the first time I've ever taken one straight off a dairy. I do have a cow that I'm not sure where she came from. It's possible it was a dairy, looking at her personality and her behaviour. But I have also had them straight from like a homestead setting where they've been quietened for a homestead and that sort of thing. So it's kind of the reason we no longer sort of have Sadie. We brought her in and we quietened her and stuff, but she still didn't fit our sort of need for what we wanted on our homestead. Fully quietened and everything, and the people that now own her are doing really well with her and all that sort of stuff because she's their only cow. But yeah, she didn't fit our plan. So they are, all cows are creatures of routine, but I found from a dairy, very stubborn, very pushy, kick and carry on, because they're not actually dealing with humans on a daily basis. I mean, there's someone manning the big circle thing that takes the cows around, but it's all automated. So they walk on, it gets locked behind them, they eat while they go around and it's being milked, and then they walk out. There's really no interaction with people, or very little, I should say. There definitely would be, like medicine times and breeding and stuff. However, very little daily interaction. So I think that is the number one difference between them. Whereas a homestead cow, you get your little body out there at 5 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning, and I don't know about the rest of you, but good morning, ladies. And, they hear your voice and they're like, oh, she's here. Whereas if someone who doesn't regularly milk them comes out, they're like, yeah, like it's not time yet. They kind of get used to their people. So, and therein lies that relationship that you build with them. So it's always sad to see one of my girls go, even though Sadie was a pain in my butt. It was sad to see her go because you build a relationship with them. So yeah, that's the big difference, I think. Not a lot of manners. I am big time on manners with cows, with all animals, in fact. All of my animals know the boundaries and whatnot. Some more than others, I should say. But that's the main difference.
Okay. So when someone wants to pick the right cow for their homestead, how do they do that? Where do they find the cow?
Well, in different parts of Australia, we have different abilities. WA has the lowest number of cows that you, like homestead ready cows, that you could, you're really hard pressed to find one. Whereas I know that over in the east, there's a lot more of them. I'm sure if you were down south of WA, say Harvey area, you might pick one up occasionally from a dairy and then would have to quieten it yourself. But where would one pick one up? Out of luck. That's been my experience. In the 2 years really that I've had, or I've nearly had Deirdre 2 years now, but that was a fluke to get her. And that's why I'm starting a breeding program with the smaller Jersey cows, because you really can't get them here. And if you do, I feel like you'd need to get it off someone that has done that hard part for you, like generally quietening. There's a lot of kicking. They will scoff their food and then just be like, I'm out of here. Cows also hold back milk, so if they've been taken off a dairy, they don't do that as much because they've never had their baby on them. But it's one of the struggles you have if you get a cow that's got a calf at foot, is quite often they'll hold back milk for their calf. And there's a few layers they can hold back. So, for example, Deirdre, in the 3rd week of her lactation this time, decided no, she was only going to give me a litre, and I know that she's producing sort of 8 every morning. I thought, no, and I could feel it all in there. So there's a whole heap of things you've got to go through then to train her that no, we get our milk and then you go feed your baby. So yeah, they're all the things that someone who's had a cow, or if you bought someone off a homesteader, for example, those cows have already been through all that.
All right, so tell me about the qualities of a good, like, homestead ready cow. Let's talk about that aspect.
Okay, the qualities would be that they are, one, have been completely integrated with humans. They're not shocked to see you. They don't react to noises and things like that. I mean, you know, we've got lots of kids and animals and ducks and all the things happening around the house. They're pretty much unflappable. It's like exactly the same as horses. If you get one that's been handled well, halter trained, so not a lot of cows that you buy. In fact, I've never bought one that's been halter trained other than Deirdre, because she came from my AI tech, and she's big on homestead cows. You have to halter train them so that they know, oh, okay, when someone pulls on that lead, I've got to go with them. It makes them manageable. And yeah, you just won't find them halter trained. Even when I bought Bonnie, who was about 6, we think, never had a halter on, didn't have a clue, and actually as a result knew that you couldn't control her. So yeah, so quietened, halter trained, not kicking, so very desensitized to the area. We do a lot of tapping on that area and touching and all that sort of stuff. They can hear the bucket or whatever you feed them in, and they come running. You can just call their name and they come. They're all the sorts of things that we work on. And once those habits are learned, that cow is pretty well bomb-proof. I often have people come over and milk or watch milking and ask me questions and things. And pardon me, I've got those 2 ladies to the point now where they can have heaps of people in the room and talking and all the goings on, and they're not bothered. You definitely cannot do that with a cow straight off the dairy. You just can't. It's not nice for that cow, but it's also not a nice experience for you. There's quite a lot of months between the dairy cow and when you can do that. And that's all time.
Yeah, and I'd imagine if someone got their first cow was a dairy cow, it might completely put them off, because they'd just be going, what is going on?
Yeah, look, honestly, if my first cow had been Sadie, I wouldn't be doing cows now. Like, I don't get me wrong, Deirdre, when I got her, my first cow, she was a first-time freshener, so she'd never had a calf before. She was just 2 years old. She had a very shocking sort of trip up on a truck from Albany. So she'd had a bit of a mess around, and I did have to quieten her myself. But she was totally different in that she wanted to work with me. She didn't already have her inbuilt, no, this is where we're going. We walk into the chute, we eat our food, we get milked, and off we go. We go wherever we like. Yeah, because she'd already been trained in that dairy way, that's all she wanted to do. And if you got in her way, she would kick and headbutt and throw herself around in the milking stand. And I tell you what, a big cow like her kicking at you, it'll deter you from milking her, that's for sure. I did have to hobble her, which is tie down the leg that's kicking. And then they just sort of wear themselves out trying to kick you. It's part of the quietening. It's a more aggressive part of the quietening, but there was no way she was doing it any of the other ways I'd tried. So whereas Deirdre, brand new, even though she'd never been milked before and very hardly handled, she'd been quietened on the halter. So she knew, oh, okay, I'm tired. I can't go anywhere. I may as well eat. She kicked out quite a few times. We belly roped her and didn't have to do any of the leg tying or anything. And she came to quiet very, very quick because she had no other learning.
You've mentioned quietening a few times now. Can you explain what that is for people that might be unfamiliar with that term when it comes to cows?
Well, yeah, it's basically like a training, like most people know horses. So like when they put a wild horse in a round yard, they're unpredictable, they're crazy, speaking of mine, I can hear him running around. He's probably going to pop up behind us. Yeah, they're crazy, unpredictable. They can be quite dangerous. And also part of that is getting to know them, because you don't know that animal and they don't know you. So it's unfamiliar, unpredictable times, and you can actually get severely hurt if you don't know what to look for, or you don't know how that animal behaves, or what sort of things they've done in the past. Like I've always been conscious of Bonnie's horns because she got me with on during the quietening process, but I know the sorts of behaviors she does now as a warning, and they're all different because they all have different personalities. So the quietening part, I guess, is for you as well. You know, you need to learn them and they need to learn you, but in that process they quieten right down, and there's like a respect level sort of between the two of you.
Yeah,
that happens.
So that's where that kind of bond comes in and makes the relationship like really kind of harmonious and not contentious. And when I've seen you with your cows, I've always been really struck with how responsive you are and also observant. What are some practices like people can, I guess, put into place to better build that trust and bond and have a better experience with their milk cow?
That is a brilliant question. Firstly, find the treats they like. I like doing things the gentle way if I can. It's all part of that, you know, like our whole homestead ethos is to treat the animal with the love and kindness you want it to treat you with. So we always start with treats and tasty goodies, you know, like that's my love language is food. So that's what I do with my animals. So we know Clementine loves bananas and they're also very good for them. So, you know, whatever bag or bin or whatever you take out into the yard, you take out, you know, like half a bucket of carrots and just sit amongst them. You may only have one to begin with. Sit there and get to know the animal. Let it suss you out. Hold a little brush or something, because that's going to be your next thing that you're going to do to bond and touch them. You know, get your little, it can even be one of the dog brushes with the hard bristles on one side and the soft on the other. If I show one of those to Deirdre, she runs at me because she knows that means scratches and cuddles and all that sort of stuff. And they do like it if they trust you. So yeah, get them food, get them some grooming things, and then, you know, just sit there with them, enjoy their company. And there's a lot you'll learn about them from doing that. And then you could move to your next step very gently, pop a halter on. Don't do anything with it. Don't pull on it or resist, you know, against them, but let them feel it on their face. Let them experience it gently and stuff. And then, you know, as you get more serious, they're going to go, oh, okay, I trust that person. She feeds me yummy treats and scratches my belly, you know, like then they want to come and work with you. So that's how we like to do it.
All right. You mentioned how Deirdre like would hold back some milk, and usually, you know, she's an 8 liters a morning girl. First, I'd like to ask, why is it milking in the morning? Like, why is the morning milk the time that you milk the cows to start with? Well, and that's a question that's come up in the comments as well.
You know, that's great. I did see that question earlier, and you know, it doesn't have to be that. I choose to do that because it's a great way to start my morning. I love to see my cows in the morning and know that that task is taken care of and that they're happily grazing out in the paddock. I feel like cows rest at nighttime. They lay around and chew their cud and just chill right out. During the day when the sun's out, it's when they're grazing. So to me, it just made sense that you'd remove their calves when it comes to that. Overnight, where everyone's kind of sleeping anyway, and there'll be less trauma. If you tried to hold a calf off during the day, there's going to be a lot more trauma. However, in saying that, if it doesn't fit your schedule to do the morning milking and you wanted to do an afternoon milking, as long as you kept those things in your mind, like grazing owls and stuff like that, you could actually do it in the afternoon. And sometimes people do it twice a day. It will depend on your cow's capacity for holding milk. I have the Jersey Island jerseys, so they don't produce a huge volume of milk. Some cows will produce 25 litres a session. They're like, the udders are so big you can't hug them. They're gigantic. I don't like that. I think the more you take out of a cow, the more you've got to put in. The extra weight on the earth, all of those things. Holistically, I don't like that they've bred cows to be like that. So I steer clear of that. But you can actually do it whichever way you like. But once you set your routine, that's what you've got to follow. So for me, in the morning, I can do up to 3, 4, 5 cows in the morning, quite quick and easy, generally before my kids are up and getting ready for school. So, you know, it's a nicer time of day. They prefer it. Then it's like a fresh start for everyone. They all go out together and off they go and graze all day and hang out.
You mentioned separating the calf now and overnight, and you also mentioned dairy cows don't get access to their calf at all. So unlike like a dairy operation where the calf is separated virtually straight away after they get the colostrum, in a homesteading situation, you're a big proponent of keeping the baby with the mum, and it's just that period overnight when everyone's sleeping that they have restricted access to the udder, even though they might still be physically close to the mum.
Yes.
So they're not, they're not traumatized. They're still physically there next to her, so that you can get milk in the morning. That's something called calf sharing. Can you talk more about that idea? Because I'm not sure if a lot of people understand the benefits of, or know what calf sharing is and what the potential benefits are and the kind of flexibility it can give you.
Right. So that's a huge one, that one. Calf sharing, we could talk all day about that and the reasons why. Put simply, leaving the calf on is a kinder, more ethical, in my opinion, way of having that partnership with the cow. If you watch them in a herd, they're very much a family. I don't like the idea of taking a baby off a mum of any sort of type of animal, whatever. So we choose to calf share. It also means that cow's udder is kept in a lot better condition, and you've got less likelihood of them ever developing mastitis, because if they hold back, or if they don't have one of their quarters emptied quite right or anything like that, the calf will take care of that through the day during the feeding. They're a lot more aggressive. The cow and the calf have a relationship, so the cow will quickly let down for a calf and empty their udder better than they will for you milking. So it's for the health of the cow as well. Who doesn't love a cute calf about? And then you either get your meat, if it's a little bull calf and you put a ring on it and turn it into a steer and whatever, or you get your next dairy cow being raised up. And if you're not in the market for another dairy cow, well, then you can on-sell it and recoup some costs that you've outlaid for your cow. But either way, ethically speaking, and also for the health of the cow, I think it's better, especially if your milk cow is the only cow you're going to have. You should never, ever, ever keep a cow on its own. They're a herd animal. They need to have at least one other friend of their kind, or they're distressed all the time. It's in their DNA to want to be with their kind. So I never let a cow go without her calf or another cow. I think it's wrong, and I will never do it, which is why we kept, his name was Sirloin on Sadie, but he's since been renamed, but we kept him on there, even though realistically I would have been weaning him by the time he left anyway, because the little bull calves, they strip the teats a bit. So in a perfect world, in perfect conditions, I would have a heifer calf born off the mum, and then we raise the heifer calf, and the heifer calf can stay on mum for until she's about to have her next calf, and you're drying her off anyway to then go and have her next calf. If she does have a bull calf, I do like to adopt a calf for that mother, because then she keeps a heifer calf on her, and the bull calf then goes off to a grow out paddock for food at about the age of 3 to 4 months, when they're really starting to destroy the teats. The bull calves are a lot rougher on mum's udder and they like use their bottom teeth, sort of rake the teeth, and you get injuries and things like that. You kind of want to keep their udder as nice as you possibly can.
Someone's asking, with the like keeping the calf separated overnight so in the morning you can get milk for your family, if you want a smaller amount of milk, do you keep the calf, can you just keep the calf away for less time, or you can do that? Or
Absolutely.
I guess, okay.
They are extremely flexible and will do whatever you need them to do, as long as you remember they're creatures of habit. So if you're keeping the baby away, say for 8 hours, you kind of got to strictly stick to that. You can't go, oh, that doesn't suit me today or whatever. In that case, you'd leave the calf on, right? So that was the other side of calf sharing. It's more flexible. So we went to a wedding. It meant we were away all weekend last weekend. And I didn't have to worry about the health of my cow's udder and mastitis issues, or the fact that my poor farm sitter was going to have to try and learn how to milk real quick and possibly stuff it up. I just went, you know what, just leave them out in the paddock with their calves. We know that there's not ever going to be a build up of milk. So the same goes for if you want to separate for a shorter period of time. And if you've got a large producer, you may never need to separate. You could just come out every morning and get whatever's left in the bag for your family. That's actually what we've been doing, because I'll just give you a quick little background. Deirdre's calf passed away this year. And so we put a foster onto her and it didn't take straight away. So we didn't do any separating of calves. That included Bonnie, because they're sort of mothering together this year. So we were just pulling them in once a day, even without separating calves, and just removing the milk that was there at the time and then letting them go again. And that can be done as well if you don't need as much milk.
Okay, cool. Someone's asking, how long does it take to milk a cow? Can you tell me about that process? Is it kind of pretty predictable in that regard?
Once you're settled and you've got your routine with your cow, yes. I can do both my cows in 30 minutes and completely empty their udders. But when I first got Sadie, it took 4 hours because, we're getting around the kicking, we're getting around her stepping away from me and trying not to get me to touch her udder. We're, sitting there massaging her udder or having to clean her udder again because she's cracked in the stand or weed in the stand or kicked the cups off. There's all manner of things that can go wrong when you're just first learning each other. And I don't recommend doing it that way. If you're new to cows, don't ever just get a cow that you got to do fresh unless you've got experience with them, because it will put you off. But it can be as quick as, say, 20 minutes.
Okay, so the answer is it depends, and it can vary, and it can improve.
Absolutely. If my perfect situation is I literally walk out in the morning and Deirdre's staring at me like, open the gate, like, let's go, let's do this. So I pour her food in she walks. I clean her. I put her udder balm on to make sure her udder stays nice and soft and supple, and away we go. If I was hand milking, that's the other thing I wanted to sort of say. I'm using a machine at the moment, but if I was hand milking, it might take me, say, 30 minutes to milk Deirdre rather than 20. It just physically takes a little bit longer. It's all sort of dependent. Can be very quick, can be very, very slow.
And what do you do with all that milk? Like, you've got a breeding program, so you've got multiple cows that need milking, and you like, what can someone do with all that milk at home? I mean, obviously, put it in your coffee.
And it makes the best coffee. And little hint, don't use sugar, use honey from your farm or like locally sourced. So much better. At one point recently, we were getting like 20 litres a day. No home can use 20 litres a day. I don't care how many children you have, because they get sick of, like, do we have to have milk again? Like, seriously, they do get sick of it. You can trade it with people. I want to disclaimer right here, it is illegal in Australia to sell raw milk for human consumption for whatever reason. That's just how it is. Whether we agree with it or not, it's how it is. You can do whatever you like to it, but don't sell it for human consumption. You can sell it as bath milk or pet milk. You can also trade it. That's perfectly acceptable. You won't get in trouble for that, but you cannot sell it. So we trade it with people locally, other homesteads that want to make cheese, yogurt, ice cream, butter, sour cream, milk kefir, everything. There's so many different things. I make bechamel sauce and I can it and keep it for when I want to make lasagnas. So many things. And if we've got so much that we can't even do that, Mina gets a ton of milk, helps with her bones grow and whatnot. The pigs get grain soaked in milk. Yeah, loads of things.
So there's no limitations in like if you can do it with, say, supermarket milk, you'll be able to do it probably better with your raw milk, and it is higher kind of in nutrients because it's not pasteurized, which is like the heating process and that sort of thing. So
yeah,
okay.
Can I circle back to that for one sec?
Yeah.
If you are doing it in its raw form and you are doing it as a homestead like we all are, it is why I have picked Jerseys. Jerseys have a way higher cream content. So especially like perfect conditions at the moment, green grass, loads of food, they're super abundant. When my milk sits in the fridge overnight, the cream separates very, very visibly. So you've got a big chunk of cream on top and your milk down the bottom. You can draw that off or scoop that off or whatever you need to do, make your butter, and then use your buttermilk for pancakes and things like that. You will have to get creative about how to use milk. There is so many ways. I couldn't even begin to list here. But if you're doing it like that, in my experience, I've had milk that I took off it 3 weeks ago, still fresh, because that cream sits there like a little bit of a protective layer. We don't mix it in until we're about to drink it.
Yep.
So it sits there with the cream on top in the fridge. And I feel like that keeps it fresher for longer. Don't disturb it once it's done its set. Until you're about to drink it, then you shake it through and drink it and get fat.
Awesome. Now you held up your udder balm before and there's questions like, oh, okay, what's that? So let's move into things around like cow care, caring for them, fencing, housing, like let's dive into that bit.
Beautiful. Right. So you already talked about the udder balm. Let's do that first. This is a fully natural one that I use. I literally just got it out of my milking stand. It's smells like lavender and frankincense because I use essential oils in them. But it's a very soft, very moisturizing blend. I've put the recipe on the page before. I might just grab that and put it over into the comments below. But we do that to keep their udder nice. So, even humans, when they're breastfeeding, there's constant wear on that area. The nicer we keep it, the happier the animal is. And also you can have a cow that's producing milk till it's 20. I've got a friend who's got a cow that's just had her last baby and she's like near 20 years old. She's still producing milk.
Wow.
So the longer you care for that animal and put the best into that animal, the longer it will produce for you. And imagine the relationship you've got with your cow that's 20 years old on your homestead, right? So udder balm's just one of the things. I guess you could buy a natural one, but it's so quick and easy to make. I'll put the recipe in and you'll be able to make it. It's great for cracked heels and everything as well. So many uses for it. I'll give you what I think you guys need to have on hand to just have a cow. I've got a little list here. So if I keep looking down, I'm not trying to be rude. Halter and lead ropes. Like I said, quieten them with a halter. It's the best thing you'll ever do. They're super responsive then. And then tie them up. You can tie them up for a couple of hours. And then they just know that there's the resistance behind them. So when you go to tug, they'll come with you. Feed tubs, water troughs, etc. What does that look like on your farm? They're all different. There's hundreds of different things you can get. Mineral blocks and licks, right? Like I said, the healthier and happier your cow is, the more they're going to do for you and the healthier they're going to be during calving and milk production. And remember, all of those vitamins and minerals that go in, they come out in your milk. So you are what you eat, right, guys? So you can get blocks for summer and winter, and they've got different minerals in them. There's also minerals mixed through the food I'm going to talk about in a second. And there's water-soluble blocks you can get to chuck in their troughs that give them trace elements and things like that. I'll put all that information in the chat as well. feed. What are you going to feed your cow? Know that cows do suffer from things like bloat. So every grain we give our animals, especially the cows, need to be flattened or rolled or cut. So I never ever give my cows whole oats or whole barley ever, because they don't kind of know when they're full, and they eat a ton of it, and then it blows up in their gut and kind of ferments, and it causes like gases that build up, and that's bloat. And then you either need to be really good with the bloat, I don't know what it's called, like a little straw thing that you stick in their rumen, or you need to get a vet out, and that can be expensive. And I'm going to go back to that in a second too.
Yep.
So I give mine cattle cubes, horse muesli, because that's where all the minerals and vitamins come from. Horsey people spend a ton of money on their animals, and lucky for us, the horse muesli is a perfect mix for cows. Keeping in mind what you take out of a cow, you've got to put back in, so they will eat a lot more. You need top nutrition for them because you're taking that in milk, right? Rolled oats, barley or lupins, but again, crushed, rolled, whatever, soaked even and fermented, beautiful. Cows love it. Ferment it with a bit of molasses. It's great for them. No wheat. We steer clear of wheat. It can heat up their joints and is one of the worst for causing bloat. So I steer clear of wheat. That's a bit of a mixed thing between the cow people. Some people say, yeah, you can feed them bread. I will not. I've just been told by cow people, just cow experts actually, that have had years in the field, do not feed bread. Oat and chaff and wheat bix. So we, in WA, I don't know if you can get it elsewhere, but Sanitarian that make our human wheat bix sell, big ton loads of this stuff, really quite cheap. It's great for fattening cows. So it's already broken down and obviously turned into a flake. So that, I know it's wheat, but it's in a different form. Helps to fatten them and keep, you'll never ever make a milk cow fat. Trust me. You're always trying to keep weight on them. The other thing, and during summer when there's no green on the ground, I like to give them a little treat of loosened chaff. It's expensive, but they really love it. And remember, if you want them to come in and happily stand to be milked, you're going to want to feed them what they want to stand there and eat. So like quite often we'll chop up carrots and throw them through the mix, and they really love that. But also it slows them down and stops them scoffing. I have cows that'll scoff their food to get out of there and get on with the next part of the day, which is getting out into the pasture. And then I have others that quite enjoy the experience and will just stand there and gently chew and not scoff through their food. So you kind of have to go by the cow that you've got, right?
Can I ask, does what you feed them affect the taste of their milk?
No.
Okay.
Unlike goats. Goats is very different.
I had to ask.
And that's actually why I sort of lean more towards cows than goats, because I know that depending on what you feed them can make their milk not taste great. But no, I've not found that with cows at all.
All right, awesome.
And I trade milk and barter milk with loads of people in this area, and none of them have ever said that. The only difference you'll find with the milk is the type of cow it's coming from. I don't put any stock in A1, A2, all that stuff. I don't put any stock in that now. I've had all the different varieties, and the A2 milk, I wouldn't write home about it. Wasn't that great. Had very little cream in it. I didn't find it, very fantastic at all. But yeah, the creamy level is all you'll sort of adjust. The more good feed they're getting, the more cream you're going to get.
Right.
So then I'll just quickly go on to water. Just briefly, because when we first got here, we had a bore and thought, oh, wicked, we'll just feed all our stock on the bore. That's wicked. We need to worry about the rainwater because we don't have scheme water here. And then my cows started to lose condition, and I was like, what's going on here? They've got great food and, everything seemed great in the pasture. And we racked our brains for ages and figured out that the bore had a little bit too much salt for a dairy cow. On the salt rating, it said great for cattle. Cattle and dairy cows, very different creatures. So if you think about how much water is needed to create all that milk, then you know that they are taking in way more water. So that salt content being too high, it's not good for them. And yeah, it did affect their milk production. So try and keep nice, clean water. We've got a HydroSmart now, but if you are going to do a cow and you do have bore water, get it tested or give them rainwater. Trust me, it can have all the difference. Then on to medicines and things. So we don't have large animal vets in our area. If we do, they focus on horses and aren't real keen on getting near cows. So I've had to get quite an arsenal of things together to be able to take care of my cows, which I've had to learn by, you know, having bad experiences like losing them. So I do have a lovely little list here. And I'll put information on where you can get all of this below. But this stuff here, can you see that? It's called Coforta, and it's a B12 and phosphorus solution. It's an injectable straight under the skin, between the skin and the actual flesh. Subcutaneous, that's the one. And you only do 20 mils. This is a 100 ml bottle, so you get pretty much 5 doses. And what it does is it encourages them to eat. So, you know, when they start to get a bit poorly, it gives them that B12 injection of a bit of energy. If they're ever feeling a bit flat and you don't know why, or, you know, what's going on, Coforta first. And if you've got a cow with calf at foot, or you're going to have calves on your property, you need to get yourself some of this ketol. It's for ketosis, which is a sickness that can drop your cow and kill them pretty quickly. If you've got it on hand, you should be right. And that one goes down into their gut, so you'd need to be able to do a feeding tube for them. There's another one called Minbal. Sheep people know about it. It's called a mineral balancer, so it's got different minerals and stuff in it. Now, if they have had a calf and they have, like, they get milk fever or something, which just means that their body didn't regulate properly when they were producing milk. They produce way too much of it, and it kind of sends them into a shock. The quickest way to tell between ketosis and Minbal is ketosis. If you smell their breath, it'll smell like nail polish remover. If that's not present, it's not ketosis. You need Minbal, which comes in like a drip bag. I'm sorry, guys, I don't have one on me. I don't know where the kids have put it, but it's like a little drip bag you get in hospital. It's got the needle on it and everything. It's ready to go. And again, that's subcutaneous. Just in the neck area, you just pull the skin out, put the needle in and hold the bag up, and it just drains into them. Then you just put your thumb on the area and massage it in. I did have a cow go down with it. It was actually Sadie when she got here. I have videos if anyone wants to check that out on YouTube, showing how to do it, the whole process. But if you can get on top of that, as soon as it starts to happen, the recovery is so much quicker. And honestly, she bounced back. By the next morning, you wouldn't have even known she was down. And that's another sign. If you can't get her up, it's either ketosis or that, or they've got a serious infection. But chances are pretty low when it comes to that. But if you've got these medicines on hand, you're saving yourself hundreds at the vet, and you're saving yourself the stress and possible disappointment of having a vet not be able to come to you, which is what ended up happening with us. So if you can get your cow off the ground and go on gold, you'll thank me for it, trust me. Another two things we have on hand anyway, because we have sheep and it's what you do. But this stuff here, I've had a couple of calves get like pink eye, because when they're feeding, sometimes their mum will crap on them and it gets in their eye and they get like a little eye infection.
What is that? Terramycin.
Terramycin. It treats pink eye. So for sheep and goats and cows, it's great to have. And you spray it directly into the eye a couple of days and it's good. Clementine was the worst for it. She got it every couple of months. She'd get it because she rubs all over her mum's back end. I don't know why. Cows are funny. And then this one here, Cetrogen. You can get it in a jet pack like this. I don't like it purely because cows hate that sound. So if you've had your calf disbutted, which is taking the little horn buds out or anything like that, or they've cut themselves on a fence, this stuff you'll use, it's nearly empty. I've got another one in the shed, but it's got 0 milk withholding. So it's another thing to consider. Whatever you give your cow, if you're drinking its milk, it's got to say that on it. You want to be able to drink the milk straight away. And if you can't, you have to be able to throw that milk away to the dog or pigs or whatever, because it's not safe to have if it's got anything on there, right? And then Ivermectin, which is your, for worming and things like that. Now, we are using permaculture principles and we are doing rotational grazing. So we're using animals to work through any possible intestine bugs and whatever. Mine don't have them. They get wormed before they come here and then we're good to go. But it's another thing you might need to consider. And if you've got calves, this stuff. De-scour paste. Now, if I'd have been able to get this when the calves were sick, we wouldn't have lost Deirdre's calf. It was the Anzac long weekend. Everything was shut and we could not get it. When you're talking about a calf, a little animal, they can go downhill and die within 24 hours. So if you have it on hand, I may not even use this again, for a couple of years, but if I have it on hand, I cannot stress that enough, guys, because it is heartbreaking when you've got to bury your animal because your vet wasn't open, or it was a long weekend and you couldn't get hold of something, or you just didn't have the ability to help them. It's tough. So if you have cows and don't have it yet, just get yourself a little kit. You'll seriously be so grateful you did.
Awesome. Wow, that was really comprehensive. Thanks, Mel. So there's a question around, like, what sort of ongoing cost do you need to consider if you're planning to keep a cow? Like, I guess that ties in like the medical stuff, and also maybe we can also tie in like setup costs, like what sort of minimum viable kind of shelter and fencing do you need? And yeah.
Again, that depends on your cow, and again, it's why we have jerseys. My small Jersey Island jerseys have never pushed on a fence ever, but if you do have that risk, get yourself a little electric unit, just to do even a hot wire at the top. That'll quite often stop them. They're not really bad on fences. That's why we ended up, we've got a little foster calf that's a Frisian, because I want to, on my YouTube channel, show the difference. Yeah, she's lovely, and we're hand raising her, so she's not going to come from a dairy background. So she's already started being quietened at a few weeks old, but I can already see huge differences in her intelligence, I should say, or I hate saying that because it doesn't mean that she's probably not intelligent. It just means that her focus is somewhere different. She's a little bit more sort of, she'll just push through stuff, and she's the one that when you're getting them away at nighttime, she'll flick up her feet and carry on, and whereas the others just wander in, they get used to their routine. So I do want to document the difference between the two breeds. But yeah, yes, very interesting.
All right. What else have you got on your list there? Have you got something else in your hand you're about to show us?
Well, yeah, other than electric fencing, barbed wire is good, but generally jerseys don't really push on fences. But I've got a little list of things to consider that you may not have, like when you're in the throes of, I'm getting a cow, I want milk, and we're going to be able to make all this stuff. These are things I didn't even consider, and most people don't. So I just want to put them out there.
Yeah.
Horns. Jerseys come with horns most of the time. If they haven't been disbudded, they can be very dangerous, and I mean even unintentionally, because they're not a nasty animal. They don't intentionally try and hurt you. Even just a flick of the head with a horn can have you in some serious trouble. It's why we've decided to disbud all of our heifer calves if they grow horns. We have children. We have a lot of other animals. One of our cows doesn't like the dog. She's had a bad experience. So, every time she goes in there and she's not there to cause any threat, she could get gored. Also, they use them on each other sometimes, and you end up with more injuries and that sort of stuff. So to get rid of that issue, we choose not to have horns on the farm. 2 of my cows do, because they came with horns. So we've put a little crown on so that the horns can't be used as horns. They're just like a ring on the head. because we didn't want to have to remove the horn. But that's something to consider. If
Mm.
you are keeping cows, how you keep everyone safe. Initially, she may not have an issue, but every time they cycle, their behavior changes. They become moody. They can swing their head around. Be aware of that. And if you've got little people in your home, be super aware of that, because it doesn't take much to rip the skin open with a tip of a horn.
Mm.
That's something to consider. If you have calf, don't leave it too long. You've only got a 2-week window to have that calf disbudded if you're going to keep her as your house cow, right? So it's things people don't think about, but you have to consider it. You've got a little heifer calf. By the time the horn bud's that long, it's too long to disbud gently and easily. We have someone come out and do it for us, but it's seriously a case of just a hot iron, scoop it out. He puts some trisulfan on, 72 hours later, and they've got no pain with this little gel he puts on. They're healed up within 3 days, and then you've got no issue with horns again. Seriously consider it. Hooves and hoof care, very important. If you live in a dry part of Australia and you've got a lot of hard ground, you may never need to even think about hooves, because they tend to take care of it themselves. But we live in a damper climate, so we have issues like the hoof grows longer. One of my cows has really long hoofs, the other one doesn't. They all grow differently. So, you know, cows aren't like horses where you can just pick up the hoof and chip away at it. It's actually quite a process to take care of those hooves. Do you have someone in your area that can do that for you? Or is that going to need to be done by you? And in which case, do you have somewhere you can secure them and tie that leg up so that you can actually trim the hooves? And do you feel confident doing that? Or do you have another homestead friend that you can maybe, you know, talk to about it? Or do you have a cattleman next door to you? And again, this is where community is great. We don't have any, I know we've just moved here like a year ago, but we don't have anyone in this area. So, you know, having little conversations with people around us to find out where they get theirs done, it's important to know. You might not need it straight away, but at some point in their life, they're going to need it. And then if you go back to calf and you're quietening a calf, start treating it like a horse. Pick its hoof up from a day old and play with its legs. Lift it. Pick it out with a hoof pick while they're little and can't hurt you.
Yep.
If they're so desensitized to you doing that, you'll be able to do that. Piece of cake, no dramas, no need for a crush, no need to pay someone. Think about the future when you're thinking about cows, because you could have a really long and easy future if you consider these things. Breeding, another thing, it takes 9 months for them to grow a baby. So you need to think what's happening in 9 months' time. From the time your calf that's at foot is 3 months of age, your cow can technically go back into calf. And the quicker you put them back into calf, like as in if they're having a calf every year, you keep their fertility up, right? If you go, I'll wait a couple of years, every year you wait, their fertility level drops. You know, it's advisable to keep them having a calf at least once a year.
Yep. And
then if you think about that, you think, right, I'm not going to have milk for this sort of 3-month period at the end. What am I going to do? You know, I'm not going to have milk, or I'm going to have a second cow I'm rotating into that spot. So that's all part of management. And then breeding, there's lots of things to consider. Do you get an AI technician out, which is artificial insemination? And where is one in your area? And do they specialize in your breed of cow? Do they have a canister with the Jersey semen, or do you even want another Jersey, or do you want to put a meat cow over it? Do you want to use a bull? They're all things to consider. You know, and the time of year that calf is dropping, you've got to count forward 9 months, right? And then you set it in your calendar. Start watching. The baby could be born in a 2-week window either side. I've got to start watching. Do I have predators that might kill the calf as it's born if it was born in the night? Do I need to bring her in closer to the house? Like, a lot of pre-planning will stop you having heartache and stress and lots of tears. It happened to me. I'm speaking from experience because I'm growing experience as I do this. And I hope that none of you ever have to learn that the hard way. we lost a calf to a pig attack, and it was horrific. And then mum died not long after. We learned so many lessons in this process. Please, heed what I say. Holidays and going away, or your schedule. What does that look like? And if you've got a holiday planned for like 6 months' time, start thinking now, oh, who's going to take care of my animals? That is such a big deal. Not a lot of people take on house sitting your cow, because it means they need to know how to milk. They need to know how, to separate the calf off. If you've got a calf, are you just going to let the cow and calf go together? And if so, do they still need to be checked to make sure calf is feeding, nice and evenly on the udder? Pre-planning. I can't stress that enough. And vets. Do you have a vet in your area that deals with large animals? And if you do, get them out to meet your animals, to do a health check over all your animals. Let them see what type of animals you've got. It's worth putting that investment in to create a relationship with your local vet if you have a large animal vet, because they're more likely to want to come out and help you if an issue happens. If they're like, oh yeah, I met little so-and-so, oh lovely, she's got this going on, she's got a race where she can catch the cows, I'm not going to be in any danger. They just get to know your property and your animals and are more likely to want to help. We actually don't have that here. So yeah, hence why I need the arsenal of medications and things. Yeah, I hope that helped.
Wow. Okay, so that's a lot of that's a lot of information. Yeah. Okay, so I do want to touch on your breeding program specifically for Jerseys. Why? Like, what are you trying to achieve out of that, and what's the end outcome for someone that ends up with one of your house cows, milk cows?
Okay. So it's developed over time, and I've settled on the old school Jersey Island Jersey cow genetics have been completely lost, especially here in Australia. My Jersey Island Jerseys are small. They're like half the size of, say, a dairy cow. So when I walk up to her, she's up to here. She's so short. She's not as intimidating to be around because she's smaller. She requires less food. She has less of a physical impact on the earth that we're trying to repair here. We bought very, very badly run down old farming land, and we are trying to use the permaculture principles to bring it back into health and to make it abundant in its own right. So with that, we wanted less impact on the earth, sort of less damage. That's why we don't run a huge herd. But also, yeah, we're going to get less milk, but it's more than enough for, like, we're a family of 7, right? When Eli's here, we can use a lot of milk. And even with Deirdre producing like 8 litres a day, we have too much milk. Like, so if we make a more manageable cow like that, she's easier to handle, she's not as hard to feed, less of an impact on the environment, all of those things. So, but also she looks completely different, right, Amanda? Like she's that old school house cow that we used to see way back in the 80s. People had them every now and again. But that's sort of being bred out and is dying. The whole industry has gone towards production. And they've bred these tall, leggy, solid, and I believe probably crossed with a Holstein to get the milk production. And they're so hard to maintain. Like you've just got to pump food into them constantly, and they still don't look great. They look skinny and ribby. I mean, that's a dairy animal, right? But the difference between Sadie and Deirdre and Bonnie, they don't look as bad. They don't look as ribby because they're sustained. And even though they're producing a ton of milk for us, they've got plenty, they're a smaller animal. They're not having to, fill this large cavity. And that's kind of my thing. I got so lucky. I scored a bull calf that is polled, so he didn't grow horns. So we've had them all A2 and A1 tested, and I'm not interested in that. Like I said, it means nothing to me. It's just some buzz phrase. All the milk's just as good. So he's A1, A2, and he's polled. We're keeping him as our breeding bull. He's, again, small stature, very much like Deirdre. We seriously snagged it. Like, somebody was smiling on us because you just can't get it. I've had him assessed by our cow experts, and they're like, perfect for your breeding program. He's spectacular. So that's what we're going to use for now. And again, I want to have that partnership with people. Like, I was so blessed to meet Alyssa and Paul. They're not far from us. They're about half an hour from us. They've become such close friends of ours. They came and they learnt about the cow. They were so confident when they got her home, and they jumped straight into milking the next day and had such a beautiful, pleasant experience. And it's all about that energy around it for me. So, you might pay slightly more than what you would off a Gumtree cow, but it'll be well worth it because it's quietened. It's super comfortable with people and all my little people and the dog, and you're not going to have any, I mean, you might still, it's going to a new home, but you're not going to have these giant issues that are, really hard to get around. It'll be respect fences. It'll be halter trained. It'll be producing milk. It'll come with a little baby. So you've got your 2 cow scenario. Basically, I want to produce the experience for people and have it so it's pretty well no problems, the less problems, the better. We've got enough on our homesteads, right, to deal with.
That's right. So that's that kind of quintessential homestead ready cow. And when you mentioned Alyssa and Paul, they're people that had contacted you and wanted a cow, and they went through a whole process with you, coming and visiting, educating about feed, what to do when experienced milking. So it ended up quite a seamless transition. For not just for them, but for the cow. Like, it's so much better for the animal.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, that's the thing. I kind of hadn't thought about it in that way, to be really honest with you. Alyssa said, I'd like her to get to know us while she's here because this is her comfortable spot. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. It does work both ways. I'm more thinking about the homesteader that is either going to have a great or a really horrible experience. And for the sake of $1,000, and people say, oh, I found one on Gumtree. I see it all the time. I found one on Gumtree. It's only $2,000. And it says on the ad that, it's still producing milk. And I'm like, there's a reason they're getting rid of it, right? Quite often, if it looks too good to be true, it is. It's never, ever had a halter on, or it's still producing milk, but it's not been milked. Like, it's never been milked. It's had a calf on it, and they've taken the calf, and there's your cow. You don't know how old it is. You don't know if it's got any blind quarters, which means has had mastitis before and doesn't produce milk in that quarter, because the udder's built up of, the whole udder has got 4 quarters that are above the teats. They can go what's called blind if they've had mastitis, and that quarter shuts down. It never produces milk again. There's so many things that you don't know if you haven't done it. And, I understand that people need to save money. I'm the same. I've fallen into that trap. That's why I speak of it, because I made those mistakes, and that's why I wanted to do this, because quietening a cow is no easy feat. It's something that requires hours of different sorts of processes. Some might not kick, some might headbutt, some might throw themselves down in the stand and just lay on their udder. Like, there's a whole heap of things that can happen. And if you're not prepared for it, don't get me wrong, I had quite a few days of crying trying to quieten my Bonnie out there, and hospital visits, like, injured. So, and my husband didn't ever, he's like, oh, the cows are your thing. Don't ever ask me to do it. And one day he hears me crying in the stand. She's in the stand, but she pissed and pooed everywhere, and she tried to kick my head off, and she kicked the milk everywhere. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, for the 7th day of hell, I just didn't want to do it. and he's like, oh, let me take over. And like we got there in the end, but it was rough. And I don't want to have people go through that and be put off having a cow, because it can be so beautiful. It can be such a beautiful experience.
Awesome. We're kind of coming up to over an hour now. Are you up for a rapid fire round of some Q&A questions? And we'll just do that to wrap up. Okay. So what do you do to keep ticks away without poisons?
Guinea fowl.
Guinea fowl. Oh, you have guinea. I left off guinea fowl. That was one I missed. Okay. Okay. Halter breaking. You've already mentioned halter breaking. You mentioned supplements when you were talking about the mineral licks. Is that what supplements would be?
Yep. But also the Minbal is a quick injectable supplement thing if something should go wrong, but it's not something you just sort of use on the daily. I put a water-soluble tablet in the water, which has got different things in it, copper and the different things they need, and then a lick so that it's in their food tub, accessible always. So their body lets them know when they need something and they'll go to it. Okay.
Someone's asked, what is the best halter?
They sell cow halters on farmersmailbox.com.au. I'll put the link in the chat here. It's the best place I've found to get all your cow needs, medications, halters, nose rings, everything you could want in one stop. And the price is really, really cheap for shipping. It's where I go. But in saying that, a horse halter will work. Their shape is it is different, but as long as the part that's down here where the neck is joining is loose enough, you can use a horse halter.
Okay, cool. Have I covered everything? Because I think we covered most of them most of the questions during our conversation. You talked about AI, breeding. Actually, you mentioned that someone might look for a cow, find a cow in Gumtree for $2,000. If someone is, we've talked about the qualities of like a good quality cow, like what you might be looking for. What sort of price range is going to get them thinking, oh, this is actually this is probably like a good deal for us. This is a good cow because it's appropriately priced.
So you know what? I'm going to scratch the price range part, because you might actually jag a cow that is great for a couple of grand. You'd be lucky, but more so you want to look at the qualities the cow possesses. So you want to be able to go and view the cow. You want to be able to handle the cow. So you'd say to the person, hey, I would love to come and see this cow. Do you mind putting it in a smaller pen so I can come and touch the cow, have a look at it? So you want to see that its eyes are nice and clear, not cloudy, not, bloodshot, not, sort of looking sickly. Yep. That she's holding her head up nice and high. She looks kind of fit and lively. You want to ask questions like, has she had worming vaccinations? Like, what's her history? How many calves has she had? Did she raise her calves? Did the calves get taken? Has she lost any calves? Has she ever shown signs of aggression? Sometimes when a cow calves, they can show signs of aggression for a couple of weeks, and they can actually really seriously try and kill you. I've seen it. Not often though, but you want to know basically what that cow's personality is like. Does she produce milk? How much is she producing? How often is she being milked? Do you hand milk or do you machine milk? You want to ask all of those questions. You want to be able to also get in with the cow and see that you can approach the cow, maybe even take some carrots or whatever. I found that's their favorite treat. Can you touch the cow? Run your hand along its back. You're not feeling any abnormalities anywhere. If you are asking questions, did the cow ever have any issues with milk fever or ketosis or anything like that? Because if they have, chances are higher that will happen again. Ketosis is something that happens in a generally older cow. But yeah, I find that most of the time people are selling their cows because they've done their best production years, in their opinion, if they're from a dairy. And there's one actually, if you're in WA, there's one for sale at the moment. If you're feeling brave, down in Harvey, it's $1,400. She looks fine, but there's a reason they're selling her for that, I think. Or you might get lucky. Do you want to risk it? If you do end up getting her and you want any advice, I'm always happy to give advice and help out, because I tell you what, owning cows has been the fulfillment of a massive dream for me. And if you have that dream, give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen, right? Get the cow, start milking. If you find it's not for you, you'll on-sell that cow. It'll be fine. Yeah, it's not just about breeding and selling for me. I want everyone to do it and love it. So if you have any questions, hit me up, check out my YouTube, ask questions on videos. I've covered so many things over the year that we've been doing it. But yeah, I just want to see you guys all just have it and love it. And, you know, there are other breeds that will produce milk. If you are not bothered by massive production, your belted Galloways will live on a sort of more sparse paddock than what a Jersey would, right? And they're a dual purpose breed, but you can milk them. They're a lovely quiet cow, and you can quieten and milk a belted Galloway. As long as that animal has had a calf, it produces milk, right? I've seen people milk Brahmins. They do it in India. Why not? Give it a shot. Like, I'd love to see that.
Well, I think that is a good point to finish our chat on. So much information, so generous. Everyone is just saying, wow, learnt so much. Thanks Mel. So much information, so knowledgeable. Okay, so yeah, so informative, so much to learn. So I think people are like, wow, that is massive. So but guys, listen back through it. A lot of valuable takeaways there. And then also remember, Mel has a YouTube channel where you'll see the daily life of her and these cows and what it actually looks like on a day-to-day basis. Mel, can you tell everyone where they can find you online?
So on Instagram, Honey Bee Farmstead, on YouTube at Honey Bee Farmstead, and on Facebook at Honey Bee Farmstead. I'm keeping it very, very simple. And, you know, like, I seriously do value and love when you reach out to me and ask a question, do it even in Messenger. If it's something you don't want everyone knowing, that's totally fine too. Like I said, I just want to see everyone loving their experiences. And, you know, just one tiny little nugget of information might just change everything for your situation. So please, there are no silly questions. I've had such a range of them, and I love them all, because, you know, if it's what's happening to you or you're worried about, hit me, mate. Like, I've seen some crazy stuff. Like, I could probably help. And if I can't, I don't know everything, I'll send you to where I think you can get the information, because we have quite a beautiful community of AI techs. The lady I use, for example, she's 80s or 90s. She's so old now, but she seriously has been doing cows forever. And this lovely English lady, and I swear to God, I've learned so much from her. I'll just hook you up with her, or if you need AI info or whatever, let me know.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, so on that note, we're going to say goodbye. Let Mel get back to her Sunday. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you again in the group. Thanks, guys. See you later.